John Miller sat on his porch in rural Montana, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and red. His coffee had gone cold, but he barely noticed. 6 months had passed since he returned from his third tour overseas and the quiet of civilian. Life still felt strange. The wind rustled through the pine trees surrounding his modest cabin. He built this place with his own hands after marrying Susan 12 years ago. Their daughter Kelly was born here. This was supposed to be their forever home, safe from the dangers he had faced as a Marine. John rubbed the scar on his forearm, a reminder of shrapnel from an explosion that nearly took his life. He survived war. He knew how to face an enemy. He could see, but nothing in his military training prepared him for what was coming. That night, John slept restlessly. Strange dreams of lights in the sky and whispering voices woke him several times. By morning, he had forgotten most of it. Susan was already in the kitchen making breakfast when he came downstairs. "Dad, look what I found." Kelly held up a strange metallic object about the size of a coin. At 10 years old, she was always bringing home interesting rocks or unusual pine cones, but this was different. "Where did you get that?" John asked, taking the object from her small hand. It was surprisingly warm and seemed to pulse with a faint light when he touched it. "In the backyard near the big oak tree," Kelly said, her eyes wide with excitement. "Is it from space?" Susan laughed as she placed pancakes on the table. "More likely it's from someone's broken machinery, sweetheart." John turned the object over. In his hands, it wasn't like any metal he had ever seen before. The surface shifted colors slightly when viewed from different angles. A strange uneasiness settled in his stomach, but he forced a smile and handed it back to Kelly. "We're still going camping this weekend, right?" Kelly asked, already forgetting about her find as she poured too much syrup on her pancakes. "You bet," John said. 3 days at Blue Pine Lake just like we planned." 2 days later, John was checking their camping gear when the news alert came through on his phone. Reports of strange disappearances were coming in from small towns across the country. People vanishing without a trace, sometimes in groups, sometimes individuals. The authorities were baffled, offering explanations ranging from serial killers to mass hallucinations. Susan entered the garage carrying sleeping bags. "Should we postpone the trip?" she asked, having seen the same news on her phone. John considered this. The disappearances were concerning, but they seemed random and spread across the country. Blue Pine Lake was only 30 miles away, and they had camped there dozens of times. "I think we'll be fine," he said. "We'll stick together and keep our phones charged. Besides, I've got my hunting rifle." Susan nodded, trusting his judgment. John had always kept them safe. They arrived at Blue Pine Lake late Friday afternoon. The campground was quieter than usual, with only a few other families setting up tents. John chose a spot near the lake, but with a good view of the surrounding area. Old habits from his military days made him naturally alert to his surroundings. That night, as they sat around the campfire roasting marshmallows, Kelly pointed to the sky. "Look, a shooting star!" John and Susan looked up. What they saw was not a shooting star. A bright light moved slowly across the sky, stopping and changing direction in a way no natural object could. Then another appeared, and another. "Those aren't stars," John said quietly. The lights hovered for several minutes, then suddenly accelerated and disappeared over the mountains. "Maybe they're testing new aircraft at the military base," Susan suggested, but her voice betrayed her uncertainty. John said nothing. The military base was over 100 miles away, and he had never seen any aircraft move like that. They went to bed early, tired from setting up camp. John lay awake in the tent, listening to the sounds of the forest and the gentle breathing of his wife and daughter. Around midnight he heard something unusual, a low humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Carefully, so as not to wake Susan and Kelly, he unzipped the tent and stepped outside. The night was clear, stars twinkling overhead. The humming grew louder. John reached back into the tent for his flashlight and scanned the trees surrounding their campsite. A flash of movement caught his eye. Something tall and thin moved between the trees, too fast for him to get a good look. John's heart raced. He grabbed his hunting rifle from the tent and moved toward the tree line. The humming stopped abruptly. The forest went completely silent. No insects, no night birds, no rustling leaves, despite the breeze he could feel on his skin. John had experienced this kind of unnatural silence before, in war zones right before an attack. "Susan," he called urgently, turning back toward the tent. "Susan, wake up. We need to—" A blinding light suddenly flooded the campsite. John raised his arm to shield his eyes. The light seemed to come from above, but when he tried to look up, he found he couldn't move. His entire body was frozen in place, rifle half raised, mouth open in a warning that would never come. Through squinted eyes, he saw tall figures moving into the campsite. They didn't walk like humans. Their movements were too fluid, almost gliding. In the harsh light, he could make out strange, angular features and eyes that reflected the light like a cat's. One of the figures approached the tent. John struggled against the invisible force holding him, but couldn't move a muscle. He could only watch as the being opened the tent and a bright light poured inside. He heard no screams, no sounds at all. Moments later, the figure emerged, and John saw with horror that it was carrying Susan and Kelly, both unconscious. Floating in midair before it, another figure approached John. It was at least 7 feet tall, with grayish-blue skin and a face that seemed almost insect-like with large compound eyes. It wore what looked like armor made of the same shifting metal as the object Kelly had found. It studied John with what seemed like curiosity, then raised a device to his face. Pain exploded in John's head, and the world went black. When he woke, the sun was high in the sky. He was lying face down on the ground outside the tent. His rifle lay beside him, unfired. John jumped to his feet, calling for Susan and Kelly. There was no answer. The tent was empty. Their sleeping bags were still there, looking as if they had simply gotten up and walked away. All of their belongings remained untouched. John searched the surrounding area, calling their names until his voice grew hoarse. There was no sign of them, not even footprints leading away from the tent. Frantic, John called the park rangers. Then the police. They arrived quickly and organized a search party. For 3 days, they combed the forest around Blue Pine Lake. They found nothing. The official report listed Susan and Kelly Miller as missing persons. Likely wandered off and got lost. The local sheriff suggested they might have gone for an early morning walk and become disoriented. When John told them about the lights and the strange beings, they exchanged glances that clearly said they thought he was suffering from shock or delusion. 1 week later, John sat alone in his cabin, surrounded by maps of the area and missing person reports he had collected. Similar disappearances had occurred within a 100-mile radius over the past month. Always from rural areas, always with no signs of struggle or evidence left behind. On the table in front of him lay the strange metallic object Kelly had found. Since that night, it had started to pulse with light more frequently, as if activated by something. John picked it up, and for a brief moment, he thought he heard Susan's voice. Distant and afraid, calling his name. In that moment, John Miller made a decision. If the authorities wouldn't believe him, if they couldn't help him, he would find Susan and Kelly himself. He didn't know what he was up against, but he had faced impossible odds before and survived. This was no longer about just finding his family. Something was happening, something bigger than anyone realized. John loaded his pistol and placed it in its holster. The hunt had begun, but this time he was the hunter. 3 weeks passed since the disappearance of Susan and Kelly. John barely slept or ate. He spent his days researching similar cases and his nights patrolling the woods around Blue Pine Lake. Dark circles formed under his eyes, and his face grew thin. The local police stopped returning his calls. They had filed the case as another unexplained disappearance, one of many across the country in recent months. One evening, John sat at his kitchen table cleaning his rifle when headlights swept across his front window. A black SUV pulled into his driveway. A woman stepped out wearing a dark suit and carrying a briefcase. She knocked on his door. "Mr. Miller, my name is Dr. Alice Wright. I need to speak with you about what happened at Blue Pine Lake." John let her in but kept his hand near the pistol at his waist. Too many people had called him crazy over the past weeks. He wasn't in the mood for another government official telling him to accept that his family was gone. "How do you know about Blue Pine Lake?" he asked. Dr. Wright placed her briefcase on the table and opened it. Inside was a laptop and several files marked classified. "I work for a government task force studying the recent disappearances," she said. "We believe your experience may be connected to others we're investigating." She opened her laptop and showed John photographs of strange footprints found in soil samples, unusual radiation readings, and metallic fragments identical to the object Kelly had found. "You're not the only one who's seen them, Mr. Miller, and your family isn't the only one that's been taken." For the first time in weeks, John felt a spark of hope. Someone believed him. Someone knew something. Who are they? What do they want? He asked. Dr. Wright's face grew serious. "We call them the HFY. We don't know much about them, but we've gathered enough to understand they're not here for resources or conquest. They're here for sport." She showed John video footage from a wildlife camera in Yellowstone National Park. The grainy night vision showed a family of 4 being surrounded by tall, thin figures. The humans were frozen in place, just as John had been. Then they were lifted into the air and vanished along with the strange beings. "They're hunters, Mr. Miller, and we are their game." John clenched his fists. "Has the government tried to stop them?" Dr. Wright nodded grimly. 3 military operations have been launched. All failed. Their technology is far beyond ours. They have shields that our weapons can't penetrate. They can appear and disappear at will, and they seem to be watching. U.S., learning our movements, our patterns. "Why are you telling me this?" John asked. "Because you're different. You saw them up close and remembered. Most witnesses have their memories altered, and you have military training. We need people like you if we're going to find a way to fight back." John thought about Susan and Kelly, somewhere out there, scared and alone. Where do they take the people they capture? "We believe they have ships in orbit around Earth, based on patterns of abductions and strange atmospheric disturbances. We think the captives are taken to these ships where they single quotes Dr. Wright hesitated. "Where they're what?" John demanded. "Released. Into controlled environments and hunted. Like game animals in a preserve." John felt sick. He thought of Kelly, just 10 years old, being hunted by these creatures for fun. Something dark and cold settled in his chest. "Take me to your facility," he said. "Show me everything you know." The next morning, John found himself in an underground compound beneath a nondescript government building in Wyoming. Scientists and military personnel moved hurriedly through the halls. Dr. Wright led him to a large room filled with strange equipment and artifacts. "This is everything we've recovered related to the HFY," she explained. Pieces of their technology, soil samples from abduction sites, radiation readings. A tall man in military uniform approached them. "Dr. Wright, this area is restricted to authorized personnel only." "He has clearance, General Harris," she replied. "This is John Miller, the witness I told you about." The general studied John with cold eyes. "Mr. Miller, I understand your situation, but you shouldn't be here. This is a matter of national security." "My family is out there," John said firmly. "I'm not leaving until I know how to find them." "Your family is most likely dead," the general said bluntly, "and we can't risk civilian interference in our operations." Before John could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed in the hallways. "Perimeter breach in Sector 7, a voice announced over the speakers. "Unknown entities have entered the facility." The general grabbed his radio. "All units to Sector 7. Containment Protocol Alpha?" Dr. Wright grabbed John's arm. "We need to get to the safe room. Now?" They ran through the corridors as chaos erupted around them. Scientists grabbed research materials, while security personnel moved toward the breach point with weapons drawn. They reached a heavy metal door, just as the lights throughout the facility flickered and died. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow over everything. "They've never come after us before," Dr. Wright said, her voice shaking. "They've never attacked a facility," The door to the safe room slid open, and they rushed inside along with several other scientists. Through a small window in the door, John watched as soldiers ran past, shouting orders. Suddenly, a blinding flash filled the corridor. When it faded, 3 tall figures stood where there had been none before. They wore sleek armor that shifted colors like oil on water. Their faces were hidden behind helmets with glowing eyes. One soldier fired his rifle. The bullet stopped in mid-inches from one of the creatures, then fell harmlessly to the floor. Another soldier threw a grenade. One of the aliens made a casual gesture, and the grenade turned to dust. "My God," whispered Dr. Wright. "They're not even trying to hide anymore." The aliens moved through the corridor with frightening speed, touching soldiers who immediately collapsed. They weren't killing, John realized. They were disabling. Looking for something. Or someone. One of the aliens stopped outside the safe room door. It placed a device on the control panel. The supposedly secure door slid open as if it were made of paper. The scientists backed away in terror as the alien entered. It surveyed the room, then focused on Dr. Wright. It raised a device similar to the one John had seen at the campsite. Without thinking, John grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and sprayed it directly at the alien's face. The creature staggered back, making a high-pitched sound. Its helmet visor was covered in foam, temporarily blinding it. John slammed the extinguisher into the alien's head. The impact knocked the helmet loose, revealing a face with large, compound eyes and mandibles that clicked in anger. The alien recovered quickly and grabbed John by the throat, lifting him off the ground. John struggled, his vision darkening as he fought for breath. With his last bit of strength, he pressed the nozzle of the extinguisher directly against the alien's exposed face and fired again. The creature dropped him, clawing at its eyes. John fell to the floor, gasping for air. The alien stumbled backwards out of the room. "The door control!" Dr. Wright shouted. John crawled to the panel and hit the emergency close button. The door slid shut just as the other 2 aliens arrived. Through the window, John watched as the injured alien was led away by its companions. They disappeared in another flash of light. "Why did they retreat?" one of the scientists asked. "They could have killed us all." "They weren't here to kill," John said, rubbing his bruised throat. "They were looking for something." Dr. Wright moved to a computer terminal and began typing frantically. "Our research. They wanted our research on them." "And now they know we're studying them," John said. "Which means they know we're trying to find a way to fight back." Later, as medics treated the injured and security teams assessed the damage, John stood with Dr. Wright in what remained of the main research lab. Much of their equipment had been destroyed or taken. "You hurt one of them," she said quietly. "No one has ever done that before." John picked up a piece of the alien's helmet that had broken off during their struggle. The material was unlike anything he had ever seen. "They're not invincible," he said. "They can be hurt, and if they can be hurt, they can be stopped." He thought of Susan and Kelly again, and a cold determination filled him. "I'm going to need everything you know about them. Their weaknesses, their habits, their technology, and I'm going to need a team." Dr. Wright looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll help you. But you should know, this won't be sanctioned. After today, the government will lock everything down. They'll try diplomatic channels, which will fail. They'll consider nuclear options, which will make things worse." "I don't need government sanction," John said. "I just need to find my family and stop these things from hunting us." For the first time in weeks, John had a purpose. The Zextari had declared humans their prey. Now, one human was about to declare war. The small cabin in the woods became a war room. Maps covered the walls with red pins marking abduction sites. Tables were filled with strange alien technology salvaged from the government facility before it was shut down. Dr. Wright had smuggled out what she could before the military locked everything down. She also brought 2 people she trusted, Captain Frank Martinez and Lieutenant Lisa Rodriguez, both from Special Forces units that had lost family members to the Zextari. John studied the piece of alien helmet he had broken off during the attack. Under a microscope, he could see it was made of millions of tiny cells that seemed almost alive, constantly shifting and repairing themselves. The material responds to light, Dr. Wright said, adjusting the microscope settings. Specifically, it reacts negatively to certain wavelengths of ultraviolet light. John looked up. The helmets protect their eyes? What happens if their eyes are exposed to UV light? Dr. Wright smiled. That's exactly what I've been working on. She held up a small vial of liquid. This is from samples we took from the foam residue that got into the aliens' eyes. Their biology is sensitive to UV frequencies. Outside our visual spectrum, it disrupts their neural pathways. So bright UV lights could blind them? Disable them? John asked. Temporarily, at least. And potentially disrupt their technology, too. Their shields, their teleportation devices, all seem connected to their neural systems. But for the first time, they had a potential weapon over the... Next week, they worked tirelessly to modify standard flashlights with special UV filters. John also adapted his hunting rifles to fire bullets coated with a compound Dr. Wright developed that would glow with intense UV light upon impact. The hard part is finding them, Captain Martinez said one evening as they ate a simple dinner. They choose when and where they appear. We can't just wait for them to show up. We need bait, John said quietly. The others looked at him. You mean a person? Lieutenant Rodriguez asked. You want to use someone as bait to lure them in? John nodded. Me, absolutely not, Dr. Wright said. It's too dangerous. We have no idea what they do to people once they're captured. Actually, we might, Martinez said. He pulled out a tablet and showed them footage from a small drone. Before the facility was shut down, we sent several stealth drones into the upper atmosphere. Most were destroyed or disabled, but one managed to transmit some footage before we lost contact. The grainy video showed something massive in orbit. Around Earth, it wasn't like any spacecraft from science fiction movies. It looked organic, almost like a giant floating island with structures growing out of it. We think it's one of their hunting stations, Martinez continued. And we picked up some unusual transmissions. Dr. Wright was able to decode some of it. Dr. Wright took the tablet and pulled up another file. It's a broadcast of some kind, like a television signal. We believe they're broadcasting the hunts as entertainment. The footage showed brief glimpses of humans running through what looked like Earth environments, forests, deserts, urban settings, but something was off about them. The colors were wrong, the plants slightly different. And pursuing the humans were Zextari hunters, moving with terrifying speed and precision. John watched in horror as a man was cornered and captured. The hunter didn't kill him immediately. Instead, it seemed to toy with him, letting him think he had a chance to escape before capturing him again. They're playing with us, Rodriguez said, disgust in her voice. These aren't just hunts, John said. They're games, entertainment. He looked at the others. And games have rules. This gave John an idea. If they could understand the rules the hunters followed, they might be able to use those rules against them. They studied the footage carefully. The hunters seemed to follow certain patterns. They never attacked in large groups, preferring one-on-one hunts. They gave their prey a head start. They used only certain weapons, avoiding others that would make the hunt too easy. Most importantly, they seemed to value the challenge. The more difficult the hunt, the more prestigious it appeared to be. They want us to run, John said. They want the thrill of the chase, which means they'll follow if I run. And lead them into a trap, Martinez finished. Understanding John's plan, they chose a location in the mountains, far from any town or city, a small valley with only one way in or out. They set up UV light traps throughout the area, powerful enough to temporarily blind and disorient the aliens. John would be the bait, luring a hunting party into the valley where they would spring their trap. The night before the operation, John sat alone on the porch of the cabin. Dr. Wright joined him, handing him a cup of coffee. You don't have to do this, she said. We can find another way. John shook his head. Every day we wait, more people disappear. Susan and Kelly are out there somewhere. I have to try. Dr. Wright placed her hand on his. We'll find them, John, I promise. The next morning, they drove to the chosen location. John would hike to a small clearing that matched the pattern of previous abduction sites. The others would hide nearby, ready to spring the trap once the hunters appeared. "Remember," Dr. Wright said as they checked their equipment one last time, "the UV lights are your primary weapon, the bullets are a backup, and if anything goes wrong, you run to the extraction point. No heroics." John nodded. Though they all knew he would do whatever it took to capture one of the hunters, he hiked alone to the clearing, carrying only basic camping gear and a hidden UV flashlight. The others took their positions, watching through binoculars and thermal scopes. Hours passed with no sign of the aliens. As the sun began to set, John started to wonder if their plan had failed. Maybe the hunters could sense a trap. Maybe they weren't interested in a lone camper. Then he felt it, a familiar humming in the air. The forest went silent. John's heart raced, but he forced himself to act natural. Pretending to set up his tent, a flash of light appeared at the edge of the clearing. 3 tall figures materialized, their armor shifting colors in the fading daylight. They stood watching John for a moment, communicating with each other through clicks and whistles. John pretended to notice them for the first time. He dropped his tent pole and backed away slowly, just as a normal person would do when confronted with something terrifying and unknown. The hunters spread out, moving with that unnatural fluid grace. One of them raised a device. John felt the same paralyzing force from the night his family was taken. He couldn't move, couldn't run. This wasn't part of the plan. He was supposed to lead them into the valley, not be captured right away. Through sheer force of will, John managed to move his hand toward the UV flashlight hidden in his jacket. His fingers closed around it just as one of the hunters approached. The alien studied him curiously, perhaps wondering why he wasn't completely immobilized like other humans. With every ounce of strength he had, John raised the flashlight and turned it on, aiming directly at the hunter's face. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The alien screeched in pain, a sound unlike anything John had ever heard. Its armor seemed to ripple and malfunction. The paralyzing force holding John disappeared, and he fell to his knees. Gasping, the other hunters reacted quickly, raising their weapons. But before they could fire, UV lights blazed from the trees surrounding the clearing. Martinez, Rodriguez, and Dr. Wright had seen what was happening and activated the trap early, caught in the crossfire of UV light. The hunters stumbled and screeched. Their armor systems failed, leaving them vulnerable. John pulled out his modified rifle and fired at the nearest hunter. The bullet struck its leg, exploding in a burst of intense UV light. The alien collapsed in the chaos. One hunter managed to activate some kind of emergency teleportation device and vanished. The third hunter tried to reach its fallen comrade, but was hit by multiple UV-enhanced bullets from Martinez and Rodriguez. It fell beside the first. "We got them!" Rodriguez shouted as they emerged from the trees. They approached the fallen hunters cautiously. One was clearly dead, its alien biology unable to handle the trauma, but the other was still alive, making clicking sounds that might have been speech or simply pain. "We need to secure it," John said, before it can call for help or activate any hidden devices. They bound the hunter with reinforced cables and removed its armor piece by piece. Underneath, the alien was even stranger than John had imagined. Its blue-gray skin was covered in fine scales. Its face had 4 eyes and a mouth full of small, sharp teeth. "What do we do with it now?" Martinez asked. "We make it talk," John said. "We find out where they're taking the humans. Where Susan and Kelly are." They transported the captured hunter back to the cabin, keeping it sedated with regular exposure to low levels of UV light. Dr. Wright set up equipment to try to communicate with it. After hours of work, they managed to establish a basic form of communication through a computer program that translated the alien's clicks and whistles into rough English. "Why are you hunting us?" John asked the bound alien. The translation came through the computer speaker. "Sport, challenge, entertainment. Where are the humans you've taken?" "The hunting grounds, the stations. How many stations are there?" 5. "Around your world. The best prey goes to the homeworld." John's blood ran cold. "What do you mean, best prey?" "Those who survive longest. Those who provide the best hunt." They are sent to the elite hunting grounds on our world. The captured hunter, which called itself Kravnak, became their key to understanding the Zextari. Though initially resistant, the alien began to share information when it realized its own people had abandoned it. In their culture, being captured was the ultimate disgrace. No rescue would come. For 2 weeks they learned everything they could. The Zextari were an ancient species that had conquered their solar system thousands of years ago. As their technology advanced, they lost the drive to expand further. Instead, they turned to entertainment to fill their endless days. Hunting became their greatest passion, and they traveled the galaxy seeking worthy prey. "You're kind surprised." "U.S.?" Kravnak told them through the translation program. "Most species we hunt are either too primitive or too advanced. Primitive ones provide no challenge. Advanced ones detect us too early and prepare defenses. Humans are in the perfect middle stage, smart enough to be interesting prey, but not advanced enough to stop us." John paced around the alien. "You said the best humans are sent to your homeworld. How do you determine who's best?" "Those who survive the longest. Those who show courage and cunning. Those who almost escape." The alien's 4 eyes followed. "John, your mate and offspring would be valuable prey if they inherited your fighting spirit." John grabbed the alien by its throat. "Where would they be now?" "Tell me," Kravnak made a wheezing sound. "If they survived the initial hunts, they would be evaluated. The strong ones go to the homeworld. The others remain on the stations for regular hunts." Dr. Wright pulled John away. "We need it alive, John." Kravnak seemed amused by John's reaction. "You care deeply for your offspring. We do not understand this attachment." "It makes you weak. It makes us stronger," John said. "It gives us something worth fighting for." The alien tilted its head. "Perhaps. It is true that humans who protect their young fight more fiercely than those who fight only for themselves." Over the following days they extracted crucial information from Kravnak. The hunting stations were massive orbital structures, each holding thousands of captured humans. The stations contained artificial environments designed to mimic Earth settings where the hunts took place. Most importantly, Kravnak revealed how the Zextari transported between their ships and Earth. Each hunter carried a personal teleportation device calibrated to their biology. Without the correct biological signature, the devices were useless to humans. "We need to get aboard one of those stations," John said during a strategy meeting with the team. "And we need a way to do it without Zextari biology." Dr. Wright had been studying the captured alien's teleportation device. "I think I can modify this to work for us by using Kravnak's biological material as a key. But it would only get a few people up there, and we'd have no way to return." "We'd be trapped on a station full of hostile aliens," Martinez said. "Not if we can take control of their systems," Rodriguez suggested. "If we can hack into their computers, we might find a way to bring everyone back home." John looked at the maps and diagrams Kravnak had helped them create of the station layouts. "We need to do more than that. We need to free all the captured humans and send a message to the Zextari that Earth is off limits." "That's a suicide mission," Martinez said. John didn't disagree. "I'll go alone if I have to." "You won't," Rodriguez said firmly. "My brother is up there somewhere." "I'm going with you." "So am I," Martinez added. "These bastards took my wife. I want payback," Dr. Wright nodded. "I'll need to go too. I'm the only one who can work their technology." They spent the next week preparing, using parts from the dead. Hunter's armor and information from Kravnak. They built 4 sets of lightweight body armor infused with the same UV-reactive material. They couldn't replicate the advanced shielding, but the armor would offer some protection and help them blend in on the station. Dr. Wright modified the teleportation device, creating a version that would work with human users by incorporating biological material from Kravnak. They also built specialized weapons, UV light grenades, modified rifles, and small but powerful UV flashlights that could be used as both tools and weapons. The night before the mission, John sat alone looking at a photo of Susan and Kelly. He had no guarantee they were still alive, but he had to believe they were. The alternative was too painful to consider. Martinez joined him, handing him a cup of coffee. "We should talk about what happens if things go wrong up there." John nodded. "If we're captured or killed, the information we've gathered needs to reach the right people. I've prepared a package for General Harris. He may be a hard-ass, but he'll do what's necessary to protect Earth." "And if we find out your family didn't make it?" John was quiet for a long moment. "Then I make sure no other family goes through what I did." The next morning, they gathered in the clearing where they had captured Kravnok. Each person carried only what they absolutely needed: weapons, medical supplies, communication devices. Dr. Wright had modified to work on the alien station. Kravnok watched from the edge of the clearing, still bound but no longer sedated. They needed him conscious for his biological signature to work with the teleporter. "You will fail," the alien said. "Even if you reach the station, you are 4 against hundreds." "We'll take those odds," John replied. He turned to his team. "Last chance to back out?" No one moved. Dr. Wright activated the modified teleportation device. A field of energy began to form around them. "Remember, we need to reach the central control room. According to the maps, it should be on the highest level of the station." The energy field grew brighter, enveloping them completely. John felt a strange sensation, as if his body was being pulled apart at the atomic level. The world around him disappeared in a flash of blinding light. When the light faded, they were no longer in the forest clearing. They stood in a metallic corridor with smooth walls that shifted color slightly, similar to the alien's armor. The air had a strange smell, not unpleasant but definitely not Earth. "We made it," Dr. Wright whispered, looking at a small device in her hand. "Life support systems are compatible with human biology. We can breathe normally. Which way to the control room?" John asked. Dr. Wright consulted another device that displayed a simplified map based on Kravnok's information. "This way, up 3 levels." They moved cautiously through the corridors, weapons ready. Surprisingly, they encountered no Zextari. The hallways were empty. "Where is everyone?" Martinez whispered that they got their answer when they passed a large viewing window. Beyond it was an enormous artificial forest. And moving through that forest were Zextari hunters, pursuing humans who ran in terror. "They're all at the hunt," Rodriguez said, her voice tight with anger. John watched in horror as a hunter cornered a young woman. Instead of killing her immediately, it seemed to be toying with her, letting her think she had a chance to escape before cutting her off again. "We need to help them," John said. "We need to stick to the plan," Dr. Wright reminded him. "If we can reach the control room, we can help all of them." Reluctantly, John turned away from the window. They continued through the corridors, following Dr. Wright's map. They reached a transport tube that would take them to the upper levels. "According to Kravnok, the tubes recognize Zextari biology," Dr. Wright said. "We'll need to use his DNA sample." She placed a vial containing the aliens' blood on a scanner beside the tube entrance. The door slid open. They stepped inside, and the tube began to move rapidly upward. When it stopped and the doors opened, they found themselves in a much larger corridor with ornate designs on the walls. "The upper levels are reserved for high-ranking Zextari," Dr. Wright explained. They were halfway down the corridor when a door slid open ahead of them. A Zextari stepped out, taller than Kravnok and wearing more elaborate armor. It froze when it saw them, clearly surprised to find humans. On this level, before the alien could react, Martinez fired his UV rifle. The shot hit the Zextari directly in the face, and it collapsed with a screech of pain. "Someone will have heard that," Rodriguez said. "Run," John ordered. They sprinted down the corridor toward where the control room should be. Alarms began blaring throughout the station. Lights flashed, and announcements in the Zextari language echoed through the halls. They reached a massive door at the end of the corridor. Dr. Wright quickly placed the DNA sample on the scanner beside it. Nothing happened. "It's not working," she said, panic in her voice. "This must require a higher-ranking Zextari's DNA." John looked back the way they had come, the one Martinez shot. "Drag it here." Martinez and Rodriguez ran back to the fallen alien while John and Dr. Wright kept watch. They returned moments later, dragging the unconscious Zextari between them. Dr. Wright pressed the alien's hand against the scanner. The massive door slid open, revealing a vast room filled with control panels and holographic displays. In the center was a raised platform where a single Zextari stood, its back to them. The alien turned slowly. It was larger than any they had seen before, its armor more elaborate and adorned with what looked like trophies, small objects taken from various species it had hunted. Humans, it said, its voice coming through their translation devices. How interesting. The Supreme Hunt Master Zorvax had been expecting them. Zorvax stepped down from the platform, moving with the same fluid grace as the other Zextari, but with an air of authority that made him seem even more dangerous. His armor shifted colors with every movement, and the trophies attached to it clinked softly. "You are the first humans to reach this level of any hunting station," he said, his words translated through their devices. "Most impressive. You will make excellent additions to the elite hunting grounds." John raised his UV rifle. "We're not here to be hunted. We're here to end your games." Zorvax made a sound that might have been laughter. "Many species have tried, all have failed." "What makes humans different? We don't give up," John said. "And we fight hardest when protecting our families." He fired his rifle. The UV-enhanced bullet streaked toward Zorvax, but the alien moved with incredible speed, dodging it easily. Before they could react, Zorvax pressed a control on his armor. A wave of energy pulsed through the room, disabling their weapons. "Primitive technology," Zorvax said. "Did you really think we wouldn't adapt after your encounter with Kravnok? We have been studying your UV weapons since that failure." Martinez and Rodriguez tried to flank the alien, but Zorvax activated another control. Energy fields sprang up around them, trapping each human in a separate containment bubble. "Now," Zorvax continued, approaching John's bubble, "you will tell me how you reached my station, how you modified our teleportation technology." John remained silent, studying the control room for any weakness, any opportunity. Zorvax tilted his head. "No matter. We will learn everything we need from examining you. But first, I think you deserve to see what happens to humans who show exceptional skill." The alien gestured toward a large viewing screen on the wall. It flickered to life, showing a different hunting ground. This one was designed to look like a ruined city. And moving through the rubble, helping a group of scared humans evade the hunters, was a woman John recognized immediately. "Susan," he whispered. She looked thinner, her face dirty and her clothes torn, but she was alive. She was leading a small group of survivors, showing them how to set traps for the hunters, how to hide their tracks, how to survive. "Your mate has proven remarkably resilient," Zorvax said. "She has survived 17 hunts, a record among your kind. And your offspring shows similar potential." The screen changed to show another hunting ground, a dense jungle setting. Kelly was there, hiding in the branches of a tree, helping a younger child stay quiet as a hunter passed below. John's heart swelled with pride even as rage burned through him. They were alive. They were fighting. But they were still captives, still being hunted for sport. "Where are they?" he demanded. "Are they on this station?" "No, they were transferred to the elite hunting grounds on our home world 2 cycles ago. The most entertaining prey is reserved for the highest-ranking hunters." Dr. Wright, still trapped in her bubble, called out, "John, the control panel!" "If I can reach it, I might be able to deactivate the containment fields." Zorvax turned to her. "An intelligent female. Perhaps you would make good prey as well." While the alien's attention was on Dr. Wright, John noticed something. The containment field around him flickered slightly whenever Zorvax used his armors. Controls. There was a connection between the alien's armor and the station's systems. "You call yourselves hunters," John said, drawing Zorvax's attention back to him. "But real hunters respect their prey. They hunt for food or to maintain balance. You hunt for entertainment, for sport? You're not hunters. You're just bullies with advanced technology." Zorvax moved closer to John's bubble. "You understand nothing of our culture. The hunt is sacred to us. It defines our society, our hierarchy, our very existence. Then why not make it fair? Give us the same weapons, the same advantages. Or are you afraid we might win? The alien's four eyes narrowed. No human could defeat a Zextari in equal combat. Prove it, John challenged. Release me, fight me one-on-one. No technology, no weapons, just you and me. Zorvax studied him for a long moment. Your attempt to appeal to my pride is transparent, but also intriguing. No prey has ever challenged a huntmaster directly. The alien seemed to consider. John held his breath. Very well, Zorvax finally said. A direct challenge. It will make excellent entertainment for the Empire. The containment field around John disappeared. He stepped out cautiously, aware that his friends were still trapped. John, don't, Martinez called. He'll kill you. Trust me, John replied, not taking his eyes off Zorvax. The alien removed pieces of his armor, placing them on the control platform. His body was more muscular than Kravnok-S, covered in the same blue-gray scales but with patterns that suggested rank or age. No weapons, Zorvax said, removing the last piece of armor. No technology, just skill against skill. John nodded, dropping his disabled rifle and removing the makeshift armor they had created. When I win, my friends go free. And you release all humans from your hunting grounds. Zorvax made that strange laughing sound again. When I win, you will all become permanent residents of my personal hunting ground, and we will take more humans than ever before. They circled each other in the center of the control room. Zorvax was taller, stronger, with natural weapons in his clawed hands, but John had fought in wars. He had trained for hand-to-hand combat against larger opponents. And he was fighting for his family. The alien struck first, moving with blinding speed. John barely avoided the attack, feeling claws graze his shoulder. He countered with a punch to the alien's midsection, but it was like hitting stone. The scales provided natural armor. Zorvax knocked John to the floor with a sweeping kick. Is this the best humanity offers? He taunted, standing over John. John rolled away from another attack and got back to his feet. He needed to find a weakness. The eyes, perhaps. Kravnok had been vulnerable there. He feinted left, then ducked under Zorvax's guard and drove his thumb toward one of the alien's lower eyes. Zorvax screeched in pain and staggered back. First blood to the prey, John said, pressing his advantage. He landed several quick blows to the same area, further damaging the eye. Enraged, Zorvax charged forward, grabbing John and lifting him off the ground. The alien slammed him into a wall, knocking the breath from his lungs. Before John could recover, Zorvax struck him across the face, opening a deep cut. You will die slowly for that, the alien hissed as they fought. Dr. Wright watched carefully. Each time Zorvax used a control on his armor, the containment fields flickered. The armor was clearly linked to the station systems. If she could reach it. John was losing. Despite landing several good hits, he was outmatched physically. Zorvax threw him across the room, and he crashed into the control platform. The alien's discarded armor pieces lay just inches from his hand. Seeing his opportunity, John grabbed a small control device from the armor and pressed it. The containment fields around his friends disappeared. Now, he shouted. Martinez and Rodriguez immediately attacked Zorvax from behind, while Dr. Wright ran to the main control panel. The alien fought with incredible strength, throwing Martinez across the room and knocking Rodriguez to the floor. John struggled to his feet, blood running from several wounds. He picked up a piece of metal that had broken off from the control platform and charged at Zorvax. The makeshift weapon pierced the alien's side between the scales. Blue fluid that must have been blood began to flow from the wound. Zorvax staggered but remained standing. He pulled the metal from his side and advanced on John. I will mount your head among my trophies, he snarled. John! Dr. Wright called from the control panel. I've accessed their broadcast system. The whole Empire is watching this fight. John understood immediately. This wasn't just about defeating one alien. It was about sending a message to all of them. He faced Zorvax, standing tall despite his injuries. You've hunted humans long enough, he said, knowing his words were being transmitted throughout the Zextari Empire. We are not prey. We are not entertainment. We are human beings, and from this day forward, Earth is off limits. Zorvax lunged at him. John sidestepped, using the alien's momentum against him, and drove him into the control platform. The impact damaged something critical. Sparks flew from the controls, and alarms began to sound throughout the station. What have you done? Zorvax demanded. Dr. Wright looked up from the control panel, her face pale. The station's systems are failing. We have minutes before it self-destructs. Find a way to release all the humans, John ordered. And find us a way home? While Rodriguez helped Dr. Wright, Martinez secured Zorvax, who was weakened by his wound and the damage to his control systems. I've found them, Dr. Wright said. Holding areas throughout the station. I can release the containment fields and direct them to the escape pods. Do it, John said. Throughout the station, containment fields disappeared. Thousands of captured humans found themselves suddenly free. Emergency lighting guided them to escape pods designed for the hunters to return to Earth. What about us? Martinez asked. Dr. Wright worked frantically at the controls. There's a main transport ship in the docking bay. I can program it to take U.S. to the Zextari homeworld. The homeworld? Rodriguez asked. Why not Earth? Susan and Kelly, John said. They're on the homeworld. I'm not leaving without them. Zorvax, still restrained but conscious, made a sound that might have been respect.